The village of Acha smelled like firewood and fresh rain. Birds chirped in the tall trees, and the red earth stayed warm even after the sun went down. In that quiet village lived a girl named Yoloma, with a heart so soft it could carry another person's pain and still smile. Everyone knew Yoloma, not because she was loud or flashy, but because she was kind. If someone's child fell, Yoloma was the one running with water and bandages. If a neighbor had no food, she would sneak yam slices from her mother's pot and drop them off, quietly, without saying a word. But the most beautiful thing about Yoloma wasn't her kindness. It was her love, and she gave that love to one person, only Abika. Abika had been her friend since they were 5. They used to race barefoot through the cassava farm, throw pebbles into the stream, and laugh till their stomachs hurt. Even as they grew older, their bond remained. When Abika helped his father build a new goat shed, Yoloma brought water and stayed beside him. When her mother was sick, Abika fetched herbs from the hills. Their lives were like 2 spoons in the same pot, always beside each other. But Abika never said, "I love you." Not once. Still, he smiled when she brought him food. He sat close when they fetched firewood. He defended her from rude boys in the market. To Yoloma, these were signs, clear signs, that one day he would speak the words her heart had already written 100 times. And so she waited. Years passed, but Yoloma said no to every man who came with a bride price. "I'm not ready," she would tell her mother. Her mother would frown and look away. "Are you not tired of carrying a dream that doesn't speak?" she once said, staring into the fire. But Yoloma believed love was patient. She didn't want anyone else. She wanted Abika. He was her home. Then one day Abika said, "I want to move to the city." Yoloma's heart skipped. She smiled. "To build a future?" "Yes," he said. "For me. For later." She thought he meant for us. She hugged him tight and whispered, "I'll wait." The next morning, Yoloma stood beside the village road with a bowl of food wrapped in banana leaves. She gave it to him with shaky hands. He touched her head softly, like he was blessing her. Then he left. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. And slowly, the color in Yoloma's world began to fade. At first, he called. He sent greetings through others who traveled. He even mailed her a pair of soft slippers once, bright red, with beads around the strap. She wore them every day, even when they began to tear. But the calls stopped coming. The messages slowed down. Whenever she asked someone from the city, they would say, "Abika, he's doing well. He works at a big hotel. Drives a small car now." Yoloma would smile, and then go behind the house and cry. Still, she waited. She helped Abika's mother carry water from the stream. She swept their compound. She kept her love alive like a small fire, covering it with care so wind wouldn't put it out. The village women began to whisper. "See this one," they'd say. "She's still waiting like a tree waits for rain in dry season. She must have made a vow to him. She's wasting her time." But Yoloma didn't listen. She remembered how Abika once covered her with his wrapper when the rain surprised them in the forest. She remembered how he once fought a boy who insulted her crooked smile. She remembered how he once said, "Any man who hurts you should answer to me." Wasn't that love? Wasn't it? One sunny day, Yoloma was hired to help cook for a big wedding in another village nearby. She packed her knife, her apron, and tied her wrapper tight. The family wanted yam porridge, goat meat, and okra soup. Yoloma was excited. She was known as one of the best young cooks in Acha. Cooking gave her peace, like the smell of pepper and smoke could calm the storm inside her. They began early, slicing onions, roasting meat, stirring hot pots under a wide palm tree. Then a big, shiny car drove in. Music blasted from speakers. Drummers followed behind, beating loud rhythms that shook the ground. "The groom has arrived," someone shouted. Yoloma smiled. She wiped sweat from her forehead and stood on tiptoe to see. The car door opened. Out stepped a tall man in a white kaftan and red cap. Her breath froze. It was Abika. He was smiling. He was dancing. And he was holding hands with another woman in gold lace. The drums went quiet in her head. All she could hear was the wind. Yoloma dropped the spoon. It hit the ground like a gunshot. The pot boiled over. Smoke rose. Tears spilled from her eyes before she could stop them. Someone said, "Yoloma, the yam." But her legs wouldn't move. Her lips wouldn't speak. She watched as Abika walked past her without a glance, laughing, happy, free. The man she had waited for, loved, served. The man who never told her he was marrying someone else. Her knees gave way. She sat on the bare earth, and suddenly, without thinking, she reached for the big pot of soup and threw it into the bush. Then she smashed the plate of goat meat. She pulled off the apron and ran. People shouted. Women gasped. Someone screamed her name. But Yoloma didn't stop. She ran all the way home barefoot, her slippers long forgotten, her chest burning with every step. She didn't speak for 3 days. Not a word. Not even when her mother cried beside her bed. Not even when Abika came with guilt and flowers. He stood at her door and said, "Yoloma, I didn't know. I didn't think. I didn't." But she didn't open the door. She didn't scream. She didn't slap him or curse. She just stayed quiet. That silence said everything. And that's how the village of Acha changed. The girl who once smiled at sunrise no longer smiled at all. She began to walk slower, speak less. But still, she helped people. She started waking up early to sweep the church compound. She helped old Mama Ajime wash her clothes. She joined her mother at the market stall. But the spark in her eyes was gone. The fire she once kept for Abika had burned out. This is just the beginning. The heart had broken, yes. But broken things don't stay broken forever. Not in Acha. Not in Yoloma. Not when love, real love, might still be waiting somewhere ahead. The pot had broken. Not the one that held the soup. The one inside her chest. The one that had waited too long. After Abika's wedding, the village of Acha could not stop talking. Some pitied Yoloma. Some called her foolish. Others whispered cruel things when she walked past. She thought loyalty was a marriage promise. She gave him her youth and got nothing in return. She should have spoken. She should have made him swear. But Yoloma didn't reply. Not once. She became water. Quiet, shapeless, but still flowing. Her mother sat by the fire every evening, poking the flames and sighing. "You must eat, Yoloma," she'd say softly. Grief is not food. Sometimes Yoloma would eat. Most times, she would just sit. But slowly, the pain began to move. It didn't leave, but it shifted from her chest to her feet. And when it got there, Yoloma stood up. She swept the compound. She peeled yam. She tied her wrapper and followed her mother to the market. Pain sat in her bones. Yes, but her hands were moving again. One afternoon, as she was arranging vegetables under the sun, a shadow blocked her light. She looked up. Abika. He had lost weight. His beard looked untidy. His eyes were tired. He held a small bag in one hand and a bottle of malt in the other. "Yoloma," he said quietly. She didn't look away. She didn't speak either. He sat on a stone beside her and rubbed his palms together. "I came to say sorry." Still, she said nothing. "I didn't know you were waiting for me." Her eyes blinked, slowly. That was all. "I didn't promise you anything," he continued. "But I see now. I see everything. You were always there. I thought there would always be time." Yoloma picked up a tomato and gently removed the rot. He sighed. "My marriage, it's not what I thought it would be." Her fingers paused. "I do the cooking," he said. "The washing. The talking. Diogo barely looks at me unless she wants something. She laughs at my dreams. She sleeps with her phone." He looked at Yoloma. "You were always different." Finally, Yoloma looked at him. Her face was calm, her eyes deep like a well. "You could have told me," she said. Her voice was low, like wind through leaves. Abika nodded. "I was afraid," he said. She stood up. He reached out. "Yoloma!" But she turned and walked away, her slippers slapping softly on the red earth. That night, Yoloma couldn't sleep. Not because she still loved him, but because she couldn't believe she had waited so long for someone who had been afraid to love her back. Her tears that night were quiet and slow, not from longing, but from release. The next morning, she woke up before the rooster crowed. She tied her scarf, packed her basket, and walked to the stream. On the way, she met a small girl trying to carry a big bucket. Without a word, Yoloma took the bucket from her and smiled. It was the first smile in weeks. 2 weeks later, something new happened. Yoloma met Yatalai. She was coming from the market, her basket full of okra and pepper, when her sandal snapped. She bent to fix it, and that was when a small black car stopped by the roadside. "Are you okay?" a voice asked. She looked up. He was tall, dark, and wore glasses. His shirt was clean. His voice was gentle. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "Please," he said, stepping out. "Let me help." Before she could say anything, he had bent down and fixed the strap with a tiny rope from his key holder. "My name is Yatalai," he said, standing. "I'm an engineer. I just came to check a building site here in ACHA. Yoloma nodded. "Thank you. Do you live here?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Then maybe I'll see you again," he smiled. She didn't smile back, but her eyes softened. And he did see her again. At the stream. At the market. At church. He always waved. Always spoke with respect. Never too much. Never too little. He never asked personal questions. He never rushed. He just noticed her. And that was new. One Sunday, as Yoloma arranged chairs in church, Yatalai walked in holding 2 oranges. He gave her one. "I thought of you," he said. "You remind me of quiet strength." She didn't know what to say, so she took the orange and sat. They ate in silence. Then he said, "I know someone hurt you. I don't want to replace them. I just want to know you." Her fingers froze. He smiled gently. No pressure. Just truth. Then he stood up and walked away. Yoloma sat there for a long time. The orange sweetened her mouth. And for the first time in months, her heart beat a little faster, but not in pain. In surprise, back in Abika's house, things were falling apart. Diogo had brought her cousin to live with them. The cousin played loud music and used Abika's phone charger without asking. Diogo refused to cook. She laughed at Abika's village accent. She spent most of the day taking selfies or posting photos online with captions like, "Soft life, queen nail polish medium dark skin tone." Abika worked longer hours just to avoid home. At night, Diogo turned her back and scrolled through her phone under the covers. One day, Abika looked at his reflection and whispered, "I gave up gold for glitter." Meanwhile, Yoloma kept living. She laughed a little more, smiled a little more. Yatalai continued to show up, not in big ways, but in small, honest ones. He carried her basket. He waited when it rained and walked her home. He once said, "You are not invisible, Yoloma." That sentence stayed with her like a warm shawl. One evening, Yoloma stood by the stream. The water was low, and the stones shone beneath. She looked at her reflection. "I don't want to wait any more," she whispered. And just like that, something inside her shifted again. She was not a pot waiting to be filled anymore. She was a river, moving forward. When Yatalai asked to visit her mother, Yoloma agreed. He came with gifts, not loud or expensive, but thoughtful. He greeted her mother with both hands. "I want to know your daughter," he said. "Not to use her, not to confuse her, but to honor her." Her mother looked at Yoloma. Yoloma looked at the floor, but her lips were smiling. In the weeks that followed, Yatalai didn't rush. He wrote her small notes. He told her stories. He asked about her dreams, her fears, her thoughts. And slowly, gently, Yoloma began to open. She still had scars, but he never pointed at them. He just held her hands and stayed. Back in his house, Abika was learning how to make ogbono soup. He had burned his hand twice. Diogo had gone to Abuja with friends and hadn't returned for 2 days. He sat alone in the kitchen and cried. Then he walked to the window and stared at the moon. "Yoloma," he whispered. But the wind carried her name away. The girl who had once waited was no longer waiting. She was choosing. She was healing. And soon she would be dancing again. But this time, not at someone else's wedding. At her own. The rain came on the morning of the wedding. Not heavy rain, but a soft, blessing kind. The kind that made the leaves glisten and the ground smell rich. In ACHA village, that meant good luck. That meant something holy was about to happen. People gathered from far and near. They came in cars, kiki, and even on foot. Aunties wore wrappers that sparkled. Children ran with balloons made of palm fruit skins. Drummers warmed their skins by the fire, ready to shake the ground. But in the middle of all this, inside a quiet mud house with blue curtains, Yoloma sat on a stool, staring at her reflection. She was not crying. She was calm. Her makeup was soft, her head tie firm, her heart steady. Behind her, Her mother smiled and said, "You look like the sun, my daughter." Yoloma turned. "No," she said with a tiny smile. "I look like myself." Outside, Yatalai stood beside the canopy, helping the old men set up chairs. He wasn't just the groom. He was part of the village now. Children ran to him. He lifted them with ease. He gave out biscuits from his pocket. His suit was simple, a soft cream color with dark brown embroidery. No gold chains, no heavy rings, just joy in his smile. When his eyes found Yoloma's, walking out of the house in her deep green lace, something in him melted. The drummers felt it too. They hit harder. The women felt it. They ululated till the air shook. Even the trees seemed to clap, because Yoloma was walking into something that had once been denied her. Not just marriage, but clarity, choice, freedom. The ceremony was not big by city standards, but it shook ACHA, not because of money or decoration, but because of the feeling. Everything felt right. Yatalai's people knelt. Yoloma's people blessed. There was no fake laughter, no pretended joy, only truth. Only two hearts choosing each other with open hands. And somewhere in the crowd, dressed in dusty jeans, stood Abika. He wasn't invited, but he came. He stood under a mango tree, half hidden, watching. When Yoloma danced with Yatalai, Abika's lips trembled. He didn't move. When Yoloma leaned into her husband's shoulder during the couple's dance, Abika's hands clenched. But when Yoloma laughed, openly, without fear, it broke something in him. Because he had never seen that laugh before. Not once. Not even when she was his shadow. And now it belonged to someone else. The wedding ended with fireworks, small ones, but enough to paint the sky. The crowd stayed late, singing, dancing, eating jollof rice and pepper soup. The drummers played till their hands bled. The palm wine flowed like a river. But Yoloma and Yatalai didn't stay long. They slipped away quietly, walking hand in hand toward the edge of the village. No convoy, no crowd, just peace. Days turned into weeks. Yatalai moved into a small house in the village while waiting for his next engineering site to be approved. He didn't rush Yoloma to move to the city. Instead, he sat on mats with her mother and helped weed the garden. Yoloma, now free of old burdens, started her own akara stall. People came not just because the food was good, but because they saw her strength in every bite. She laughed freely now. She greeted people with her eyes up, not down. She walked like someone who knew she was worth loving, even if no one clapped. Abika's life got quieter. Diogo left him 6 months after the wedding, saying she was not made for village men. She took her cousin, her phone charger, and most of the money. Abika didn't chase her. He just sat on his wooden stool each evening, watching the sun melt behind the hills. Sometimes, he would pass by Yoloma's akara stall, buy quietly, and leave before she saw him. But sometimes, she saw him, and gave him an extra ball. Not out of love, but out of healing. Because what had once broken her could no longer touch her. One quiet evening, Yatalai returned from the city with news. The site had been approved. They would move. Yoloma looked around at the village, its trees, its roads, its red dust, and held his hand. "Let's go," she said, smiling. "But I'll come back every market day." And she did. Even after they left, she returned to ACHA every week with fresh things from the city, books for the children, spices for the women, tools for the church. But she never came back as the girl who once waited. She came back as the woman who was chosen. Their love wasn't loud. It wasn't painted on social media or shown off at every corner. But it was real. He opened her door. She packed his bag. He held her when she couldn't sleep. She prayed for him when he traveled. And at night, they talked about small things, plantain, clouds, forgotten dreams. It wasn't perfect, but it was home. And in ACHA, whenever young girls asked about Yoloma, the elders would smile and say, "She didn't shout. She didn't fight. She just walked away." And that made all the difference. If you have not subscribed to my channel, you might not hear my voice again, but if you are, then you are growing every day. Check my page for more interesting stories. Thanks for watching.